Crime in Sweden is a hot topic these days, a very hot topic. It's all over the news, and in 2026 there's even a new crime festival, the STHLM Crime Festival. No, despite the name, it's not a festival for committing crime, even if that would be pretty hilarious. It's a meeting place for fans of thrilling mysteries and true crime. But is this a festival that exploits people's fascination for crime and violence? Is this a festival that romanticizes crime? I guess that there's only one way to find out. Let's visit Stockholm's newest and most controversial festival. I've talked a lot about crime in other videos. Sweden has a huge problem with gang violence and violent crime in general. The number of shootings and bombings have skyrocketed, and people are portraying Sweden as a lawless wasteland. Well, things might not be quite as bad as that. It's a dire situation, but compared to many other countries in the world, Sweden is still quite safe. It's more that people have become disillusioned. Sweden has been portrayed as a utopia with no crime, but that's actually never been the case. And now that Sweden is facing the same problems as many other countries, it's a rude awakening for many people. Not to mention that the levels of crime in Sweden are worse than in neighboring Nordic countries. So crime has become one of the biggest talking points about Sweden these days. And you could say that the culmination of that is a complete festival dedicated to crime. STHLM Crime Festival isn't just a festival about crime itself, it covers a wide range of topics. Crime novels, true crime fandom, and unsolved mysteries such as the infamous Palme murder. Olof Palme was Prime Minister of Sweden when he was shot in 1986, and his murder still remains unsolved to this very day. I'll talk more about that later, but first let's talk a bit more about the festival itself. STHLM Crime Festival is arranged by Emil Almberg and Björn Andersson, and they were inspired by CrimeCon in the US. True crime is immensely popular in America, and Sweden is just as hooked on it, if not more. This festival is new for 2026. It's a 2-day festival that takes place in Kungsängen in the north side of Stockholm. And at the festival there's lectures and workshops and exhibitions and a lot more. Authors and various officials are presenting a wide array of topics on multiple stages, so there's definitely a lot to explore. It's all in Swedish, so I guess that many of you wouldn't understand the lectures, but let me give you a summary of the program. First of all, there's a lot of panels with crime novel authors, Vivica Sten and Anders de la Motte, for example. And also David Lagerkrantz, Anna Jansson, Anna Bågstam, Arne Dahl, and tons of other authors. To be honest, I'm not familiar with half of these authors, so I'm really sorry if I missed mentioning some of the bigger names. But I think that also illustrates just how big Sweden's crime novel scene is, and how much people are interested in crime and crime novels. One interesting talk is by Esa Kasala, who used to be part of a Swedish gang. These days he helps people escape from organized crime instead. And there's also talks from people working in correctional facilities, for example on the topic of how young people are affected by prison. There's also panels with various podcasts, like Krimkalendern and the Murder Pod, and a live podcast with Spår. You can also ask questions live to a criminologist in another podcast. And of course, you have talks about crime statistics in Sweden, gang violence, and some more gruesome specifics such as talks about strangulation. Fun topics for the whole family. But yeah, this is an 18+ event, so all the kids have to stay at home. But there's more. Crime quizzes, discussions about true crime TV shows, and whether or not they can help solving a crime, and so much more. The schedule is completely packed, so you're definitely getting a lot of crime-related topics for your money. One of the authors here is Håkan Andersson, and you have a lot of books here. What are these all about?
This is crime novels. I'm writing these crime novels with my cousin. He's not here just at the moment, but we are doing this together, and it's really fun because I love read crime novels myself. And then I said, oh, why doesn't we have to write some together? And we did it. And now we're here.
Have you been doing it for a long time?
Not so long time. Our first novel was in the market for 2024, and now we have the following up coming 2025, and we are writing on the third part.
Yeah, that's productive.
Yeah, we like to have, you can see, this is the first one, and this is the second one, and the third one is just on the wall here.
So it's a couple of papers. You have 2 lines written.
Yeah, yes. We are doing this because we have other works, ordinary jobs. We do this at our spare time, and it's I think it's really fun, and really fun to be here at this festival because it is the first time we do this in Sweden, and I think many crime authors are here today, and it will be an exciting program.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I hope it's going to be a continuing thing. What do you think is so fascinating about crime novels?
I think it is when it is exciting, and when you get a little bit scared, and when you really want to know how this will end up. That is the clue with crime novels, I think.
So it's a bit of a mystery and anticipation.
Yes. Everybody wants to clue up a mystery.
Aside from all the talks and panels, there's also exhibitions at the festival. First of all, there's a lot of crime-related agencies and organizations at the festival. The police, of course, but also agencies within crime prevention and correctional facilities. But there's also interactive exhibitions, like the Forensics Lab. At the Forensics Lab, you can try to determine which handwriting is fake. And you can also learn about how UV light is used to determine what is bodily fluids and what is just random condiments. And a lot of other cool things that the police are happily showing off. There's a mugshot booth as well, and I have to check it out because I can't resist a bit of good old silliness. By the way, if you want a lot more silliness, you can join the 3-star Vagabond Facebook group. It's a proper hive of scum and villainy, but we can be pretty nice sometimes. That's a good place to discuss upcoming videos, or just random topics about Sweden. Or any place at all for that matter. And there's a lot more. There's a listening lounge where you can listen to various podcasts, and then there's tons of different competitions and exhibitions, and yeah, there's a lot to see. And finally, I have to mention the Palme Lounge. I did say that I was gonna talk more about Olof Palme, so let's dive into that topic a bit. On February 28, 1986, Sweden's Prime Minister Olof Palme was assassinated. That murder sent a shockwave throughout Sweden. It's definitely one of the events that changed Sweden forever. Olof Palme led the Swedish Social Democrat Party from 1969 until his death, and he was one of Sweden's most significant statesmen. He was controversial, and he often expressed critique of both American and Soviet politics. And he was anti-imperialistic and against authoritarian regimes in general. His ideas reflected Sweden's political positions in the 1960s up until the 1980s. Many Swedes were pretty idealistic back then. People believed in the Social Democrats and that the world could change to be more liberal and caring. That was, unfortunately, of course, highly controversial, and Olof Palme's politics were met with a lot of international opposition, as well as domestic criticism. But critique is one thing, and assassination is something completely different. So when he was shot in 1986, people were shocked. That was the first murder of a Swedish national leader since Gustav III in 1792 at a masquerade ball. But why are we still talking about this assassination 40 years later? Well, that's because the murder is still unsolved to this very day. An ex-convict and drug addict called Christer Pettersson was convicted of the murder, but he was later acquitted unanimously. Many believed that he was simply brought in to be a scapegoat, either due to incompetence or to cover up the real killer. And this is where the conspiracy theories start. Some believe that South Africa had him killed because of his fierce critique against the apartheid regime. Others speculated that it had something to do with arms deals with India because of a scandal with the arms manufacturer Bofors. Some also blamed the CIA or Chilean fascists or the PKK, or that it was a police conspiracy. There was also another prime suspect called the Skandia man, Stig Engström. He took his own life in the year 2000, but he was still pointed out as the likely murderer by the Swedish prosecution authority in 2020. But in 2025 it was declared that he was no longer the main suspect. So the murder is still unsolved, and many believe that it's highly unlikely that we'll ever know who killed Olof Palme. But there's still hope, and new clues and new technology are emerging all the time, so it makes for a fascinating case that still tickles people's imagination today, 40 years later. STHLM Crime Festival takes place over 2 days in April, Friday and Saturday, and I'm only visiting on Saturday. In other words, I missed a lot of talks and activities during Friday, but there's still a lot to take in even if I'm only here 1 day. I love the forensics lab and all the lectures about various topics. I'm guessing that there's a pretty large variety of people that are visiting the festival. Some work in law enforcement or used to work in law enforcement, some are authors, and some are just fans of true crime. I had some nice chats with policemen and authors, and yeah, I think I learned quite a bit today. Mostly about the crime situation in Sweden, because that's a topic that I'm pretty interested in. Overall, I didn't expect this festival to be this extensive and this interesting. This is the first year of STHLM Crime Festival, and I think it's off to a really good start. Peter Bergström is an author specializing in historical crime novels, and I'm curious, why historical?
The historical crimes, you can put it in a context that really reflects much of the society when you're writing about the crimes. It really says a lot about the society at that time, and you get to know why, how could these crimes happen, what led to them, what led the criminals to do this. They're not like an isolated island. Everything has its reasons. It's a different time. It's a very different time from now. You cannot understand the crime if you don't understand the society.
So it's almost more an exploration of culture and history than focusing on crime itself.
Yes, you could put it that way. I would say that it's because it's so much more than just the crime. You have the people behind it, you have the criminals, but you also have the victims. And this way you can also tell their story. You also have to remember the victim in this part. And, what led to this crime?
What do you think about the STHLM Crime Festival?
I think it's wonderful. It's fantastic that we finally have this event, because this is the first time, and I'm thrilled. It's so fun to see all these fellow authors, and most of all to meet all the people who read about, the crimes I write about, and to connect with fellow writers and police, investigators, everything. It's really fun to be here.
It's like a meeting place, a melting pot of like-minded people, sort of.
Yes, I would say so, yeah.
I started this video with the question of whether or not the STHLM Crime Festival is exploiting crime and romanticizing violence. So, is it? In some ways, you could say yes, but in most other ways, no. Crime has become one of the most controversial topics about Sweden lately, both internationally and domestically. Gang violence in particular is fiercely debated, and when people are actively seeking ways to discuss it all, making a festival about it makes perfect sense. I guess that you could argue that there's a bit of romanticizing going on, especially when it comes to all the true crime panels and podcasts. But crime novels were popular even before this recent crime epidemic in Sweden. It's something people have been fascinated with for decades or centuries. You can't really call a festival like this exploitation, because we already have been digging into these topics for decades and centuries. And if you're talking about romanticizing violence, then I think all the rappers are doing infinitely more in that regard than any of the exhibitors here. That said, a festival like this could turn into exploitation if they weren't selective about the people they invite. But they've done a good job of offering a wide range of topics and presenters, and they're letting many different aspects of crime be shown off here. There's a lot of effort and passion that's gone into creating this festival. Sometimes when you attend a festival, you can tell that it's an obvious cash grab. This is not one of those festivals. I imagine that this festival is kind of the reverse. It's probably cost a lot of blood, sweat and tears and money to get this festival off the ground. And it seems to me like they're trying to build a community, create a meeting place for like-minded people with a fascination for mystery and crime. That's pretty far from exploitation in my view. And speaking of creating a meeting place, I have to mention the After Crime Bar. I find that name absolutely hilarious. It's like a place where people can drop by after a successful heist. But instead, it's a bar area where people can sit down and discuss what they've seen at the festival. I like that. It's something that they didn't have to include, but they did, and it invites conversation. To me, it seems like this isn't a festival that shoves information onto people. It's a festival that invites discussion. So cheers to that. Good job on creating something new and exciting. And thus ends my visit to the newest and most controversial festival in Stockholm, STHLM Crime Festival. I wasn't sure if this was gonna be something I'd be interested in, or if you have to be a hardcore crime nerd to enjoy it all, but I can safely say that I had a lot of fun. And the lectures were really interesting, and I felt that I actually learned a lot from the festival. I hope that the STHLM Crime Festival will return again next year, and that it will become a roaring success. Stockholm needs more quirky and unusual activities like this. But what did you think? Does this look like an interesting place to visit? Or do you think that it leans a little bit too much into romanticizing crime? And have you ever visited CrimeCon or any other festival like this? I haven't, so I'm curious about what it's like, so please leave me a comment and tell me all about it in that case. Either way, it's about time to wrap up this video. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day.